There we go. Well, welcome, Jeffrey. We'll give you a little bit of an intro, and then you can get started here. So today we have Jeffrey Soltz from RareSkills. I believe you're the founder, right?
That's right.
So he
Yep.
started RareSkills to basically educate Web3. I'll let him do a little bit of an intro and then take us away. He's going to be talking about upskilling in Web3 and career progression. He gave this talk at the Monad 101 in Singapore and found it incredibly useful. So wanted to have you guys all listen in. So I'll hand it over to Jeffrey and you can go from there.
Cool. Thank you. All right. Let me share my screen here. So, okay. Can you guys see this?
Yes, we can. I think so.
Yes, we can.
Cool. All right. So I'll be talking about career development for engineers, and I'll kind of explain in a little bit my context around experience with this. So I guess let me just introduce myself really quick. So I'm the founder of RareSkills. If you don't already know what RareSkills is, so it's a education and media company for developers. So if you want to consume some cool content that's technologically focused, check it out over here. This is on our homepage. You can learn all of this. We put a lot of effort into our content, and it's been quite well received, as I'll get to later. But so RareSkills I started 2 years ago. Before that, I worked at Yahoo. I led their video machine learning team. So that was mostly a bunch of like computer vision and natural language processing. And I was an engineering manager there, so I definitely had to help people with their careers. So some of this talk will be informed by that. And RareSkills, even though we cater to engineers, we mostly are all about creating really great content. And if you followed like the Twitter space that we're in, you'd probably have heard of us. We also run a coding boot camp and a recruitment company. That's how we actually make money to produce the content. So we've taught, unfortunately, we don't have Monad as one of the logos here, but we've taught engineers at quite a variety of companies and helped them get engineering roles at companies that you've probably heard of. So what I'm saying here is based off of that. Specifically, our recruitment company is called Rare Talent. So plug if you're hiring or looking for a job, please check it out. It's specifically for engineers though, so just FYI. However, everything I say here, I think will be pretty general beyond just engineering. So I still think it will be interesting. Now, career advancement really only boils down to two things, which are on the slide here. It's becoming more skilled, which lets you take on bigger opportunities, and also convincing people that you have those skills. Now, when I have career advice talks, most of which you're going to find online is typically geared towards the junior engineer, right? It's how to get your first job in engineering, or if not engineering, then in Web3. But since we work with more advanced engineers, I've also had a lot of conversations that are around these other 3 points, which are people who want to work in a niche and exciting field, like ZK is a niche and exciting field. AI is a niche and exciting field, or at least if you're working closer to the core technology that's pushing it forward, people oftentimes want to be on, working on these new exciting languages, new exciting techniques. That's what I mean by niche and exciting field. I don't mean Web3 as a whole, because Web3 is very, very big. Then a lot of engineers are motivated by money. I mean, it's generally a well-paying job, especially in Web3. So I have a lot of conversations around that. I think it's totally fine to be making money your reason for being here. There's nothing wrong with that. You just really want to make sure that you're not blindly chasing it and you've optimized everything properly, which I'll get to in a second. But the reason I'm talking about all 4 of these things is because the strategy is the same for all of them. It's all about growing skills and convincing people that you have them. But what it looks like, depending on which of these categories you are in, will vary. So first, I'm going to talk about, I'm going to kind of cluster the engineer who makes 100K, who's looking to make 100K. I just kind of picked that as like, the figure that a lot of people have in their head, depending on which country you're in. It seems I've noticed in South America, the magic number is like $60,000 a year. Is where people kind of feel like they've made it and have a good salary. But in other parts of the world, it could be different. So I'm just picking a nice round number. Anyway, so let's talk about the strategy for people who are somewhat early in their careers or are looking for a somewhat difficult but achievable goal. I know I run a coding boot camp, but I would say you shouldn't really rely on those for progressing your career. We don't actually really cater to junior engineers. We're generally catered to people who've been around for some time. The thing with education is either people are either there's a lot of people out there who either want your attention or want your money, right? Even if someone's offering something for free, if something's free, you are the product, right? So there are people who produce content like myself. We have an incentive to say, hey, consume our content, either pay for it or give us your attention, because this is gonna push your career forward. And of course, if we appeal to your career, then that gets your attention, because that's very important to a lot of people. But the problem with courses is that they don't make you special, right? When someone puts out a job ad, it gets 50 plus applicants, and a course does not make you stand out. That's the problem with them. The problem with them is that there's no barrier to entry to a course. Anyone can take a course and get a certificate at the end. So I have not seen, at least maybe with other industries it's different, but certainly in the segment of the industry I'm in, certificates don't count for anything. But people like to sell them as something that is special. So just be aware that what you see at the top of Google or on the top of the recommendation algorithms, like if you browse Medium a lot, is not necessarily optimized for your benefit. It's optimized for getting your attention. So what you should do instead of taking courses, or wait, actually I have this funny tweet here, which was caught a little bit of attention. Kind of the takeaway from this is don't be basic, right? If you just follow what the top recommendations are, then you're going to look like everybody else. And it seems like the recommendation algorithms have really propped up two particular kind of tutorials. Because in our recruitment company, and when I run other job ads or even help other companies with this is something I actually see pretty recurring. So if you just have a couple basic projects that are easy to find a tutorial for, and you put that on the top of your resume as something that makes you special, then it actually doesn't make you look good. So what should you do instead? Well, okay, actually, let me provide some more context before I get to that. Because the interesting thing about like the junior market, or people who are trying to hit their nice first round number, is that maybe about 3 years ago, there was kind of a cheat code just to like actually take a course and get a job. You actually could do that. Actually, a couple friend of mine did that, but it doesn't work anymore because everybody knows about that trick, and the market's been flooded with that, with more entry level people, and also interest rates are not as low as they used to be. That's a factor too. But overall, it's not an easy thing anymore. But that said, I don't mean that as a discouragement, because I think in the grand scheme of things, the people sometimes get upset, like, oh, I can't make six figures or my magic number in 6 months. Like, dude, people spend 4 years trying to be a doctor, or 4 years of undergrad and then 4 years of the stuff that comes afterwards to be a doctor or lawyer. So in the grand scheme of things, even if you have to grind for 2 years, you're still saving a lot of time. So don't let that upset you. Just gain some perspective on, just in general, how much effort it takes to have a high paying career. Only use education as the means to get started, but your silver bullet is hackathons, and a lot of them. Why? Because you kill so many birds with one stone. One, you build a network, and obviously, a network is quite valuable, right? I don't think I need to explain that. But as you go to hackathons, you meet other people who are motivated. You meet companies, and you just really increase your surface area for some lucky event happening just by hanging out with that particular crowd. You also get good feedback, like how good of a coder am I? If I compare myself to other people and I'm doing the worst, then I kind of gives me some feedback that I need to build that particular skill set to stand out more. And then hackathons pay money. If you really want to be like funny, because a lot of Web3 platforms, I'm going to talk about this again later, but a lot of Web3 platforms are very hungry for engineers being on their platform. So there are some hackathons where there's almost nobody competing on it. and it's so easy to make money. In fact, there was this hackathon in Bali a month or two ago or something like that. They basically paid you to attend the hackathon, and then on top of that, you could earn money if if your project basically worked. And so that was for another blockchain whose name I won't name, but I'm just saying opportunities like that are all over the place. So obviously you're not going to make a salary working at hackathons, but you get money, right? That's which is great. And then also gives you validation, because you can say whatever you want about yourself as an engineer on your resume, but if you get a reward from a hackathon, then that's saying, hey, somebody else who gave an outside opinion and said I'm good. And that's ultimately what real credentialing is, right? So certificates are a bit fake because anyone can just make them, but winning a hackathon is kind of like that, but better, because they were willing to literally put their money where their mouth is. Okay, so do hackathons. That's really it. And when you're not at hackathons, you definitely need to be networking, because I've seen quite a few people who are not really that qualified for their job. In fact, I mean, I'll just shoot straight here. Some people have gone to our training programs because they got a job that they're not quite qualified for, and they realize like, oh shoot, I'm managing millions of other people's dollars, and I'm not really that well trained with Solidity. I better get my act together. So then how did they get that job in the first place when other people are like grinding their butts off trying to get that very desirable smart contract engineer job? Well, that's because they knew the right person. So that's the power of networking. And networking is really about being known as a person who gives value to other people. And there's a lot of ways that it can be done. One is writing useful tutorials. Now, when you write tutorials, you don't want to just parrot what other people have said, because for one thing, the algorithms are going to not boost your post. And two, it doesn't provide value for other people. Where you provide value when you're writing material for other people is that you went through a certain struggle trying to get a certain thing to work, or just figure out some difficult thing in general, and you're trying to save someone else down the line the hassle of going through that also. So if you write something that's saving other people trouble, like you went through some kind of difficulty yourself, and then you try to spare somebody that difficulty, that's how you create value. If all the tutorials are already handling that particular problem and you just copy it, that's not saving people any trouble, because they could just read those other tutorials. So that's not creating value. Engage with, like I talked about earlier, how companies are often desperate to bring people onto their platforms. There's a ton of L2s and all of these projects and whatnot. When they release something like a API or an SDK or something like that, then fork the repository, try it out, leave some feedback. Maybe they probably didn't do a great job with documentation, because hardly anyone does. And just make some pull requests saying, hey, maybe this part could be explained a little better, or tweet about your experience using it. And then they'll probably engage with you. That's going to give you exposure, and of course they appreciate you for giving the feedback. And you can do something similar like that in their Discord, where you can say, hey guys, I tried out this application that you launched. Here's my experience with it. And if someone else is trying it out, then be helpful to them. Respond to them before the company's DevRel does. Now, you may have to try out with different communities to see where you vibe with, right? Because not every company has a great community engagement, or you just might feel more at home in some places than other places. But these are how you can simultaneously. You're kind of doing the same thing with a hackathon here, right? You're putting yourself. You're gaining experience by actually using these SDKs and writing code, while also putting yourself out there, while also creating value for other people. And it might sound like, oh, I'm being helpful to a bunch of people and not getting paid for it. Well, if you're the sort of person who's like keeping an accounting book of all the favors you've done for people, waiting for a payback, then you're doing it wrong. Because most of the time when you do a favor for someone, it's not going to get returned for you. However, kind of like if you're like a venture capital firm or someone who trades meme coins, you know that all of your returns are concentrated in a few very high payoff situations. So that one guy who returns the favor might not return it for you in a equal manner. Like you put in 10 minutes, he might say, hey, here's someone I know who's looking to hire, and I can say a good word about you. And then boom, there's now you've hit your 100-figure, or sorry, 6-figure, or whatever the round number is for you. And all of that time planting seeds of favor, suddenly it gets a very big payoff in one regard. So you want to look at networking in that way. Most of the time it's a small loss, but sometimes it's a very, very big payoff. If you keep that mindset, then you won't feel like you're being taken advantage of. The other thing I would say, again, this goes back to not being generic, is the cool like last year nobody was talking about like RWA or whatever all this new stuff is, right? Cross-chain intents or something like that. So it's very easy to become an expert in these fields because there's really not that much information in these fields yet, right? They're not mature fields. So find show that you're able to gain mastery of a subject, right? I wouldn't worry too much about, hey, what if I bet on the wrong horse? Like I picked, some cross-chain stuff and it turns out that doesn't matter. Well, no, what you want to be able to show is that, hey, I'm able to move beyond where all the hand-holding is. I'm able to move beyond where there's no tutorials. That shows that you're able to deal with hard problems, and that's how you get a high salary, is by solving hard problems. And that's really what you want to illustrate. All right. Wait, sorry, I'm getting a call on Slack. I need to shut that off. All right. Yeah, about that, I think it doesn't mean you don't feel there's two extremes you can go here. One is having imposter syndrome, and the other one is trying to pretend you're all that. Just be honest, just share, hey, this is what I'm learning right now. This is what I built. People really like genuine, because it's kind of surprisingly scarce nowadays. So just say what you're doing and and give your honest feedback. It's really that simple, but people make it more complicated. Like, oh, I need to have like my marketing strategy and something. Like, no, you don't. If you're building a personal brand, just say what you're up to. Be real. Okay, so that talks about someone who's kind of more junior or trying to hit their first round number. I think this kind of will apply to the later stages too, but it's especially true with someone who is in the earlier stages. Okay, because once you've developed, you have 5 years of experience or something like that, then I don't think personal brand won't matter as much. You can just kind of show that, and people be like, oh, this guy's experienced. When we talk to people who we're recruiting for, there seems to be this very huge prejudice about years of experience, which may or may not be justified. But sometimes when we show a candidate to a company and we say 7 years, then they don't ask any other questions. So the good news is, if you hang in there long enough and get real experience, then it gets easier. Okay, so the niche fields engineer, the guy who wants to work on something cool. It depends on your motivation for this, right? If you are just want to say, hey, I want to have something cool on my resume to impress my friends, then there's ways that you can, kind of finagle this. There's companies who say they're using AI, and in reality, they're not. But if they have a role for AI engineer, and you want to say that I work in AI or something like that, well, then you can find companies like that, because there's a lot of them. VCs like to play this game where they face a buzzword and then pump the valuations and whatever. So if you're okay with that, then you can look for shortcuts. I mean, I'll just shoot straight with you. You can look for shortcuts that way. But if you actually want to be working on something meaningful and difficult and exciting, the thing that's really going to matter is your demonstrated ability to do research, which means patents and publications or a graduate degree. I've seen people who try to work in, hey, I want to work on hardware acceleration or ZK or something like that. But if you don't have one of those 3 things, then it's just a really, really hard sell. It can be done, but the amount of work that you have to do to make up for it is pretty hard. Now, for some fields like security, like if you want to be like a smart contract auditor or something like that, that is thankfully, all you have to do, I mean, I'm making it sound easy, but it is straightforward, is just prove yourself in audit contests, things like Code Arena or something like that. So that, thankfully, for some fields, there are these avenues where you can kind of permissionlessly prove yourself. But for other ones, they're very, the culture is very credential heavy, for better or worse. And in my opinion, mostly worse. But that's just the way it is, and it's kind of hard to do anything about it. But I would say, getting a graduate, I enjoyed my years getting a graduate degree, and I think it paid off very much. So if you know that you want to be doing research, then I would seriously consider it. Okay. Then there's the high salary engineer. So this one, I mean like 200K or higher or something like that. So 200K salaries are not common outside the United States. That's kind of the number that I picked. So speaking of the United States, if money is like hey, I just want to make as much money as possible. Yeah, that's totally fine as long as you're honest with yourself. Uh, your best bet is to work at a FANG company in the United States, because those numbers are eye-popping. Now they're very, very competitive, but it's but I would say it's probably the most, I guess, reliable way to make that kind of money, if that's what's important to you. And yes, the United States has a ton of money, so you kind of have to do that. But outside of that, if you're looking for, hey, I want to get like I work in Europe or in Asia, and I want to make 200K working for a well-funded company. Maybe not FANG, but there's definitely some very, very well-funded companies in Web3. Aside from the fact that you need quite a few years of experience, demonstrated technical ability, the other thing that you're really going to need to prove yourself effective in an organization is the ability to communicate well. Because especially with a remote job, it kind of boggles my mind how people don't really grasp this. With a remote job, then you have to write very well, because the communication bandwidth is bottlenecked compared to a face-to-face interaction. So if you're going to solve hard problems, you're going to need the problems are going to be so big that you can't solve them yourself. You're going to need to coordinate people to solve them, whether you're as a tech lead or a very influential senior engineer, or even having some title like CTO or VP of engineering or something like that. And when humans work on teams, they are very effective. But making a team work is difficult. But probably the first piece of that, aside from like the psychology of it, is just being really clear what everybody needs to do and why. So being able to communicate clearly and communicate persuasively is what, once your tech ability is pretty good, is going to probably be the biggest driving factor. So I would suggest every day minimum, you got to do the reps, which means write. Try to explain a code base. Try to argue why one architecture is better than another. Now, other people don't necessarily have to see this. I mean, it is good to publish it on platforms where you get feedback about your writing. But good writing is the act of taking something you know intuitively very well, and then making that thought reproducible in other people's heads. And that translation can be difficult. So for example, if you look at a well-designed website, you can probably say this is well-designed and this is not well-designed. But can you describe why that is the case? Can you clearly describe what all good designs have in pattern, and not just describe it in an abstract way, but say it in an actionable way so that someone can actually follow it? That's hard, right? Because a lot of things we kind of know intuitively, like how do you find the maximum in an array of integers? Well, we kind of know that off the top of our head. Now there's more complex things that we kind of know off the top of our head how to do. But then suddenly we have a hard time articulating those. So, but we can get good at those. It's just a matter of practice. How do I turn the ideas into my head into something that's easily understandable by someone else? So get a lot of practice, and if possible, get feedback, because feedback will help you grow faster. And in terms of marketing yourself for these kinds of roles, the reason why people pay more is because they want to guarantee that you're going to do the job well. So you want to have built, your resume needs to be optimized around having a track record of accomplishments. They need to know, I can delegate a big task to you that might be too big for one person and you can figure it out. So in your current role, you want to be thinking about, how can I make my current situation turn into an accomplishment that I can sell later? And you want to be prepared. What's the story I'm going to tell about what I'm working on right now and how I solved a big problem and de-risked things for the company. And the nice thing is it's happening right now, so you can literally write that story. That's how you want to be thinking about it. The other thing I would say, I mean, it's the last point here. These jobs are not common. So even if you deserve it, there might not be a role available. There's only so many at a time. So there's a huge amount of luck involved. You have to be talking to the right company at the right time. They have to like you for maybe superficial reasons. And maybe some guy who was extremely qualified, who would not normally be looking for a job, got laid off because the company ran out of money, and then you ended up competing with someone who's been around twice as long as you. So there's just all of this stuff that you can't control. So you just have to be really patient with it and optimize your chances in the meantime by doing the things that I talked about. All right, so that's that. I guess kind of a summary of stories from being an engineering manager in the past and also running a recruitment company today. Here's our website, shameless plug. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for listening.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was, every time I hear it, I get a little bit more out of it. I really like the talk. I guess I'll open it up to questions in case anyone has any follow-up questions about anything that was covered. Feel free to type it in the chat or raise your hand. And if we don't have any questions, we'll wrap it up a little bit early today. Yeah, let's give it a second. I already covered the question.
Yeah, so like it was like great session. So yeah, like I have question like what do you think like I know lots of guys those who are like in blockchain space in Web3 space for a long, but do you think like doing open source contribution in top projects in Web3 projects and share about your experience, share what you are doing in Web3 space, your I mean like your work, your blogs on Twitter. Do you think like it will really help us? I mean like your presence, your good presence on Twitter as compared to LinkedIn?
Well, the nice thing about Twitter and LinkedIn is you can pretty much reuse the same content on both. So, I mean, if you're relatively new to the social media game, then just post the same content on both. I would say trying to optimize the platform differences at this stage doesn't matter. But yeah, I mean, open source will help you. I have not actually seen it really be a deciding factor for people, oddly enough. But it if you're engaged by it, right, and you are contributing value to people, and you're able to make meaningful contributions, you're not just correcting a few typos here and there, then yes, I think it can help. And writing about your experiences will put your name out there. Yes, I think it's perfectly valid. I haven't. I think for people who are very early on, hackathons might be more achievable because it can be a little bit challenging to get your work merged into an open source project, depending on how big it is. But if you're able to do that, then that's great.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, there's another question here.
Yeah, trying to understand it actually.
You have advertised for 4 months. When will you be giving feedback on that? I'm not sure what that is. If you mean the technical writing job that we just posted, then that's pretty new. So, we'll look at. We've gotten about 60 or 70 applicants now or something like that. So we're gonna comb through it next week, and the short list. We're probably only gonna hire one person this time around, but that's the status on it.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I wasn't sure.
Cool. Glad we have someone here who knows about that.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're hiring a technical writer right now. Or well, I guess kind of like we have a technical writing fellowship, so that's a bit of an experimental role. We'll see how it goes.
Nice. Yeah, I guess I do have a question that I think might be helpful. For someone who's like brand new to developing or just like Web3 space in general and wants to get into um, like development in some sort of capacity, what's probably the highest impact thing they can do like in the short term?
For people who are new to programming, um,
Yeah. Yeah,
or
let's say
okay,
that they're like fairly new to programming. Like,
okay. The big one thing that's going to hold you back is if you don't pass a technical interview, you're not going to get a job. So I would say you really have to nail the traditional interview questions. And there's stuff like, Hacker Rank or Leak Code or things like that where you can practice them. And if you're not able to uh, really fluently handle the easy ones and comfortably answer more medium ones, then that's going to hold you back. So I would really be focusing there. And then once you're and then also get to the point where you're able to participate in hackathons and be useful, right? So that means you at least have to create functional front end or back end applications or something like that.
mm,
So I would say if those are going to be your two limiting factors, figure out which one is a limiting factor and then work towards becoming decent at it. Where
what
can we get
about,
access to these hackathons? Um,
oh yeah.
oh yeah, go ahead. If there's a follow-up, it probably makes more sense if I answer it now.
No.
Um,
Go for it.
Okay.
I
Yeah, I was
I
just
have a question actually.
yeah.
Okay, so for those really starting out, what's the best place to document your journey? Because I get confused if I should contribute to Twitter communities or Discord communities. So sometimes it becomes cumbersome to do so many of them at the same time. So what's the most impactful way I can do that?
But you can reuse content across platforms, I would say. So if you're writing let's say you built a project, put it on Mirror or Medium. You can do both, and uh, then summarize it into a tweet thread and put it there too. I mean, I would say it is good to put your actual content on Twitter and not say, "Hey, I wrote a blog, check it out," because unless you're already kind of well known, people don't engage with that. Um, but Twitter does not let you really write as media as these other platforms do. So I would you kind of have to summarize there in order to get the point across. That's what I wouldn't overthink it. The thing about Discord, it's good for like talking with other people, but if you're trying to say, hey, here's a project that I wrote, let me talk about it. Discord doesn't really keep the information around for other people to see it. And also you can't write as long on Discord as you can on these other things, but you can summarize, but the Medium article that you wrote or whatever, you can summarize on Discord. And summarizing what you did is also a good skill to have. So that's good practice anyway. But everybody, for the most part, reuses the same content across platforms. What we publish on Twitter is very similar to what we publish on LinkedIn, and what we publish on Medium is actually a cross post from our website. So we reuse content. We reuse content very heavily, and every company does that, or a lot of, I don't know every company, but most of them do. Don't obsess about having a platform specific strategy, I would say, because that's unless you're a very big company, that optimization doesn't matter.
Yeah, so the biggest thing is just to be out there sharing, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Can anyone contribute for RareSkills articles on GitHub? Yes. You can open a pull request. If you mean writing a new article, that's GitHub probably isn't the right way to do it. You should reach out to the team. But people can and do open pull requests when they see issues on our articles. So where can we get access to these hackathons? There's websites that maintain lists of them. I know Ethereum Foundation keeps a list of it. Obviously, Monad has hackathons from time to time. You should be doing those. Yeah, I don't know. Just honestly, I know this is probably not a helpful answer, but just Google it there's websites that curate this stuff. Frankly, my website should be curating that now that I'm saying this, but other people are already doing a great job. It exists. More system design than lead code. Yes, if you're above entry level, then you do need to learn about system design. That's true. More blogs than threads. No, you can do both. Like, you can write a blog, then turn it into a thread where you just summarize the main point. From that is linked to.
Yeah,
okay,
I can
that,
answer the
okay, go for
Monad
it.
one. Yeah. Yeah, so we will probably have our first official hackathon here toward the beginning of the year. Other than that, there are a bunch of open source projects in the Discord under projects. You can also create your own to get help from the community and just kind of build in public. We encourage people to do that. There are special roles that are available for these types of things. You're right. There's also a guild. So the current one is the Flipside Data Course Guild. And then if you're interested in starting another guild, you can reach out to the mods and we can review it. If you have like a specific course or topic that you're interested in starting a guild for. So yeah, I think those are probably the most concrete things right now from Monad.
Cool. All right, and I think that covers all the questions in the chat.
Yeah.
Oh, build cyber or build cyber.
Yeah, build cyber.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, funny enough, I was going through the RareSkills website just yesterday because I was looking into advancing my smart contracts engineering skill set, and yeah, I really loved the content on the blogs and also the modules in the advanced solidity bootcamp. So I just have one question concerning hackathons. Like, will there be internal hackathons during the progress of the course, or a pipeline to hackathons, like any official hackathon partners that RareSkills might be working with, so that fresh graduates can, just immediately go into the hackathon phase? If there isn't, will there be anything like that coming soon?
I mean, if there's hackathons that are noteworthy, we tell them to the community, but we have not partnered with companies to do hackathons. Yeah, there's plenty of opportunities for them. So we would, yeah, all we have to do is just, I should have come prepared with a list with these websites that have them all, but you don't need an introduction to join a hackathon or anything. It's a,
all right.
Companies, the people who are hosting hackathons want you to join them. That's why they're hosting them. So don't feel like you need an introduction or something like that. They want to get as many people there as possible. That's what makes their event a success.
Yeah.
Right.
I would say I think there's about 2 ETH Global online hackathons per year, and then there's one adjacent to almost every conference out there. So if you see a conference coming near you, you can also look for that. And then obviously, as Monad goes into testnet and mainnet, we'll have our own series of hackathons to look out for. So.
All right, thanks. Like, that clears up a lot of things. Appreciate the answers.
Sure thing. And thanks for checking out our website.
I think that's about it. I don't see any other questions, so maybe we'll leave it there. Oh, we got one last one. Is it a good idea to invest time in multiple areas or only focus on a niche?
Don't spread yourself out. That's, I would say, be more biased towards doing a few things than a lot of things, because you don't, when you go online, it feels like people are an expert on everything, because you look at one article and this guy, hey, look at this React.js thing I made, it's really cool. Hey, look at this cross-chain application I made, it's really cool. Look at this, and then you kind of get the impression that the people who write on the internet, as this amorphous writer is kind of good at everything. I can't build a functional front end app without ChatGPT. If you constrained me to like an hour, I'm just so slow at it, and it's not my area of specialization. I have also never deployed a contract on Cosmos or Near, and I also, let's see here, I don't really use the graph. There's just a lot of things that I don't do, and I'm considered an expert, right? So I would definitely say you should be more towards niche things. I mean, even as myself, I feel like I do too much, just between all of the ZK and DeFi things. And it's kind of my job to be doing a lot of stuff because my company produces content and, you know, we curate things for people. So don't spread yourself out. It's there's people like you know, I talked about those people who are always saying engage with my content whether you pay for it or it's free because I want your attention. There's always this siren song of you need to learn data science, you need to learn machine learning, you need to learn system design, you need to do this, that, or the other. And keep in mind, you're hearing that from people who are trying to bait you into engaging with their content and growing their audience. So take it with a very big grain of salt, pick what interests you and what you know will eventually turn into a career, right? If all of those things I talked about could eventually turn into a career, so you don't have to worry about that. And what you're how successful your career is going to be is how good you are at the job, not necessarily what field you're picking, right? Even people, let's say people who picked Web3 in 2021, they got very lucky, they made money relatively quickly, but it doesn't work for them anymore because the field is not as overflowing with cash now as it was back then. And people who got a job very easily are now struggling to look. So they didn't build long-term skills, they just got lucky. Build long-term skills by picking a niche and getting good at it. And when you get good at something, that will give you the confidence that you're able to, if you need to migrate fields, then I got really good at machine learning back in the day. Like I had patents in the subject, I won contests, blah, 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 blah. So when it came to blockchain, I wasn't so intimidated by the fact that it was unfamiliar because I'd gone through the process of, I've been through this before, seeing like, oh, there's this big thing where I barely know what's going on, but I can get a handle on it. So getting mastery in something is also going to build your confidence. So don't spread yourself out.
Awesome. Oh, we got another question.
How is content producing? Yeah, the boot camps and our recruitment thing. So Rare Talent, get a job through Rare Talent. That's how we make money. Also our boot camps. Sometimes we get grants from companies who sponsor the content that we create. That's how we make money. But we're primarily a content company. That's what people know us for, and that's where we invest most of our resources.
All right.
All right.
I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much for the time today. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording here.